I'm not a guy that makes a lot of, I guess, yearly predictions, meaning I like to see things transpire, meaning I like to know what a team looks like with their draft. I like to know what a team looks like through free agency. I like to know what a team looks like via trades, which will be available starting June 1st. So I don't just make predictions with a lack of information, because I think that saying, oh, next year a team is going to look like this can sometimes be a little bit presumptive. Of course, and I know a lot of people like to do that in this business. That's just not my style. I'll give you some bold predictions, and they're bold because a lot of things have to go right for them to happen, and I don't have a lot of data. But there are some things that I really don't trust going into the 2026 season. And by not trust, I think it makes me nervous because I think it can change the makeup of what a team could be. I always talk about the floors and the ceilings of NFL teams and any sports team when I'm talking about sports, but specifically for this show, I talk about floors and ceilings. I always say I think you want a team who has a higher floor, because at their worst, if they're better than 75% of teams, or if they play better than 75% of their opponents on their floor or at their floor, then that's whom I consider to be playoff contenders. That's whom I consider to be somebody that can possibly win a Super Bowl. So the first thing I don't trust in 2026 is Rashee Rice. And if you watch this show, and shout out to everybody that does, you know I'm not a basher of coaches. I'm not a basher of players. I'm not a basher of character. I will speak on what I see. I will say where I think a player is lacking on the field. I will say where I think a player is lacking from a team development standpoint, but I never like to just dive into people's personal lives. One, because I never have the full story, and likely I haven't met them before, so I'm not going to just bash somebody and say that this should happen to them or this situation should take place. What I will say is that Rashee Rice is putting himself and the Kansas City Chiefs in a dangerous position, and this is really why I don't trust it in 2026, because it gives me vibes and deja vu of a situation that has already transpired that I can relate to, and that's Josh Gordon. You remember Josh Gordon that went to Baylor and was drafted by the Browns? It was a phenomenal athlete, had the size and the speed of Julio Jones, had the hands of some of the best receivers in football, whether you want to say Hines Ward back in the day, or whether you want to say DK Metcalf now, or Jackson Smith and Jigba, just was a phenomenal receiver all the way around. But he couldn't stay healthy, which we all know availability is one of the biggest assets to have in the NFL, but he also couldn't stay out of trouble, dealt with substance abuse, probation, just suspensions, couldn't stay on the field for a variety of reasons, and it really killed his career. And he was someone who had a very high ceiling, but because of those issues, had a low floor. And I'm getting those vibes from Rashee Rice. And think about it this way. What if Kansas City, in his first year as a rookie, where he won a Super Bowl with Kansas City, and he started to show himself as the guy. In that season, you could argue that was Rashee Rice's best season in the NFL. His best year. Because when he was supposed to take over as the number one receiver, what ended up happening? He ended up getting hurt. And then he ended up being involved in a lot of legal issues in terms of a car and causing accidents and things of that nature. And he just recently violated his probation, and he'll be spending 30 days in jail. So, again, I'm not sitting here telling you anybody should be perfect, because nobody is perfect. And what I'm also not doing is I'm not sitting here telling you that Rashee Rice is not lowering the standard of the Kansas City Chiefs. Because if he's not what he should be, what if Xavier Worthy doesn't pan out to be what Kansas City wanted him to be in terms of a deep threat? Now you're starting to look at what Kansas City did a couple of years ago when they drafted on defense and really hit a home run. Remember, they're without Trent McDuffie now. They're without Jalen Watson. So those are two guys that they drafted that helped them win back-to-back Super Bowls, and now they've got to retool. And you've got Mahomes coming off of an injury. The Kansas City Chiefs are compromised at this point in time. Do I still think that they can get things together? Absolutely, because I understand where they've been from an organizational standpoint. They've been top-notch. But there are cracks like this that I didn't think I'd see, which makes it a little bit more impressive of what they've been doing, what I've seen the Eagles do. When people can operate in chaos, then I know that they're very good. Even though you don't want chaos to be present, it's inevitable. All right? It's going to happen in life, and it's definitely going to happen in the NFL. But for what's happening with Rashee Rice and what I saw in Josh Gordon, there are too many similarities, and I know how that situation ended up. So that has me not trusting Rashee Rice in 2026. The next thing I don't trust are the Indianapolis Colts quarterback position. I'm somebody who's been a very big supporter of the Colts, and by supporter, I simply mean that I know that they haven't gotten recognition. Now, I do think, I was doing my research earlier, and I do think if you go back to the draft in 2023 where Anthony Richardson was drafted, I think there were a lot of misses for the Colts. And based on an article that I read, I agree with it wholeheartedly. But here's what. You don't see too many teams. So you have the Atlanta Falcons, the LA Chargers, the Colts, of course, the Minnesota Vikings, and the LA Rams. The Rams are probably to the side because Ty Simpson has not played in an NFL game yet. But those are teams that have at least two quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round. A lot of the times when you have that situation, it's because one of the quarterbacks, usually the backup, didn't pan out where he was before. And Anthony Richardson, because of his health, Anthony Richardson, because of his lack of conditioning and sometimes, Anthony Richardson, because of some of the decisions he's made, like tapping himself out of a game, the development hasn't been able to grow, so you don't know where he is. And the one thing the coach don't want is for a guy to be 3 to 4 years in the league and still not be where they wanted to be and still not have progressed. And if you're Daniel Jones in that situation, they struck gold, man. The Colts struck gold when they signed Daniel Jones and they didn't know what they were getting, but now he's coming off of a horrific injury as well. So I don't trust the quarterback situation. Do I think the team can still perform and compete in the AFC South? I do. It's been the Texans. You saw the Jaguars win it last year. The Colts have been in the mix. They just haven't been able to get over the top. But this quarterback situation makes me nervous because they've got 2 first-rounders, and you can say Daniel Jones had some success in New York. He won a playoff game. But I understand what that was with them, and I understand that they didn't want to extend them either. So that means something. So with Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, now they got Riley Leonard in the mix, which I don't think is a big part right now, but he may be in the future. I just don't trust the Colts quarterback situation until they show me differently. And the last thing I don't trust in 2026 is the AFC East as a whole. And this was a pretty good division last year. And by pretty good, it was because the Patriots and the Bills were double-digit win teams. The Jets weren't good and the Dolphins weren't good last year. And now I'm looking at 2026 with the East. You've got Buffalo with a brand new head coach. You got the Dolphins who are going to have a brand new squad and a brand new head coach. You got the Jets who have been the Jets and no, disdain for Aaron Glenn. I hope and I pray that he has a good season. I think that he's done a great job and that team has done a great job drafting talent, but we got to see them put it together because they haven't done it in forever. And then you've got the whole Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots situation. And when I looked at this, I would say easily New England had the best coach in the division. They have one of the best coaches in all of football. But I don't know how this whole thing off the field is going to turn out with New England. So I'm not saying that the AFC East won't have a contender. They have to have a contender because they have to have a division champion. But I'm not as bullish on the AFC East as I may have been a month or two ago, just with a lot of changes and a lot of uncertainty, because the dynamic in New England is very, very important to me because I believe in cohesion and I believe in top-down leadership. And again, nobody's perfect, but just because people aren't perfect doesn't mean that the mistakes they make don't have an effect on the overall 53-man roster.